Ever imagine an artist so devoted to their craft that even the weather could make or break their day?
Oh, absolutely. Think about landscape painters especially.
Yeah. And today we're diving into a case like that. Claude Monet, his iconic paintings, and his unexpected love affair with dot fog.
Fog.
You heard right. Not the sunny French countryside you might picture, but the thick fog of London.
And that's a twist. I wouldn't have pegged fog as inspiring.
But for Monet, it was. We've got two of his letters written from London in 1901, right when he was working on his famous Houses of Parliament series.
Oh, I love that series, the way he captures the light.
Exactly. And we'll also be looking at a Smithsonian article about how air pollution, a big part of London's fog, actually impacted Impressionist paintings.
So we're talking art, atmosphere, maybe even a bit of environmental history.
Spot on. And Monet's letters give us a front row seat to his process. Let's start with the one dated March 2nd, 1901. He sets the scene right away. Il pleut à torrent.
It's raining heavily for those of us not fluent in French.
Right. Not exactly ideal painting weather, especially for someone like Monet.
He was all about capturing the nuances of natural light, painting outdoors en plein air.
Which makes his next line even more telling. Continuer une toile est presque impossible.
Meaning?
Continuing a canvas is almost impossible. You can practically feel his frustration. He's in London for a specific purpose, and the rain is throwing a wrench in his plans.
He wasn't just painting the Parliament building, he was painting light, atmosphere, the fleeting effects of the weather.
And the rain was messing with his muse, so to speak.
Exactly. It's like if a portrait artist's subject suddenly decided to wear a bag over their head.
Haha, perfect analogy. But then, just a week later, on March 10th, different problem. He writes, Quelle journée triste que ce sacré dimanche anglais.
Translation.
What a sad day this sacred English Sunday is, he's complaining about. A beautiful, sunny day.
No way. The man wanted rain, now he wants gloom.
It's almost like he's craving the fog. He even says, La nature s'en ressent. Tout est comme un mort, pas de train, pas de fumée ni de bateau, rien qui excite un peu la verve.
Whoa, hold on, let me grab that. Okay. So basically he's saying nature feels it, everything's dead, no trains, no smoke, no boats, nothing to excite the spirit.
Yeah. And then comes the kicker, specifically about the Houses of Parliament. Ce n'est vraiment beau que lorsqu'il y a un peu de brouillard.
Ooh, that's a strong statement. What's he saying?
It's only really beautiful when there's a bit of fog. Not just that he prefers it, but that the subject itself needs the fog to be truly beautiful.
Fascinating. So it's not just a weather preference, it's tied into his whole artistic vision.
Exactly. And that's where things get really intriguing, because this fascination with fog wasn't unique to Monet. It reflects a broader shift in how artists, especially the Impressionists, were seeing the world.
Moving away from the super realistic, detailed style and towards capturing those fleeting moments, the effects of light and atmosphere.
Exactly. But why fog? Why something most people at the time considered dreary, even ugly? Was it purely aesthetic, or was there something more going on?
Good question. And that's where the Smithsonian article comes in. It connects Monet's fog obsession to the bigger picture, the environment of the time. But before we go there,
We need to dig deeper into how Monet actually struggled to paint this fog, because his letters reveal a process full of both frustration and dedication. So we've got Monet practically begging for the fog to roll back in, saying the Houses of Parliament only look their best shrouded in it. But how did he actually capture that elusive atmosphere on canvas?
well, it wasn't easy, that's for sure. His letters really highlight that. He talks about spending hours, sometimes even days, trying to nail down a specific effect, and often not getting it quite right. In that March 10th letter, he even says, J'ai travaillé jusqu'ici 20 fois des toiles, pour finalement n'en faire qu'une pochade en quelques instants.
Wait, back up. He worked on some canvases 20 times. That's
Yeah.
got to be frustrating. And what's pochade?
A pochade is basically a quick sketch, a study. So he's saying that after all that work, all that reworking, he felt like all he had were rough drafts.
Man, that just makes his longing for the fog even more intense. Right? Like he knew time was running out, the fog was fleeting. He had to work quickly to get its essence.
Exactly. And that urgency really shows in his technique, too. Remember, Monet and the other Impressionists were all about those quick, visible brushstrokes. They wanted to capture the immediate impression, the light, the color, not create a super detail polished image.
So his style was almost like dictated by the fog itself, by its ever-changing ephemeral nature.
You could say that, yeah. And this is where it gets really cool because now we can start connecting his artistic choices to what was happening in the environment back then. That Smithsonian article you mentioned, it talks about how the Industrial Revolution, for all its advances, also created massive air pollution, especially in cities like London.
Right. And that pollution, all the smoke and soot, that's what was making that thick fog Monet loved so much. Kind of ironic, huh? Something so harmful, so unpleasant, was actually shaping his art.
Yeah, it's a complicated relationship for sure. We've got the nasty effects of pollution on one hand, something we definitely wouldn't romanticize. But then on the other hand, this unintended consequence, a totally unique visual atmosphere that influenced an entire artistic movement.
It's crazy to think about. The article also mentioned a scientific study, one that analyzed the contrast and color palette in paintings by Turner and Monet. And they found a correlation between pollution levels and visual stuff, basically.
That's right. They found that during times of high pollution, the paintings had these hazier contours, a whiter color palette. It's like the smog and fog were scattering the light, diffusing the colors, creating that softer, muted effect.
So Monet wasn't just choosing to paint in this hazy way. He was depicting the visual reality. His paintings are almost like documents of the polluted air he was breathing.
Exactly. It's this fascinating example of how art can be influenced by, even reflect, the environment in ways you wouldn't expect. Monet wasn't setting out to make a statement about pollution, but his paintings captured its visual effects anyway.
Makes you look at those Impressionist paintings in a whole new light, right? They're not just pretty pictures, they're snapshots of a specific time and place, reflecting the environmental realities of that era.
Totally. And it brings us back to those letters and that question you raised earlier.
Yeah.
Why was Monet so drawn to something most people found ugly? Maybe, beyond just liking how it looked, he saw something deeper in the fog.
Deeper how?
Like maybe he sensed, even if subconsciously, that it was more than just weather. It was a symbol of the changing world, of the Industrial Revolution, and its impact on nature. Maybe he was drawn to that complexity, that ambiguity.
That's pretty profound. The fog blurring the lines between beauty and ugliness, nature and industry. But the letters also show us a very personal side to Monet's experience in London. A feeling of loneliness, a longing for his wife, Alice. Yeah, it's easy to focus on the technical stuff, the brushstrokes, the colors, but those letters remind us there was a real person behind those paintings. Someone experiencing, well, life.
Exactly. And we got these glimpses of his vulnerability, like this longing for connection in the middle of this huge, bustling city. He writes in the March 2nd letter, de sorte que nous avons encore dîné seuls.
Meaning?
So we dined alone again. He mentions that both his friend, the painter John Singer Sargent, and his hostess's sister were busy. It's a small thing, but...
But it says a lot about how he's feeling. Here's this guy in one of the most exciting cities in the world, surrounded by people, yet lonely.
It's that artist paradox, right? You need solitude to create, but you're still human. You need connection, too.
And it makes those moments when he does connect even more special. Like in the March 10th letter, where he bumps into this journalist and art collector, Raymond Cushlan. Monet writes, Tu penses qu'il était content de me voir et moi aussi du reste?
Which means?
You can imagine how happy he was to see me, and I too, for that matter. It's just this sweet, genuine moment of human connection, reminding us that even in a foreign city, you can find those sparks of joy.
And maybe those moments, those connections, were what fueled his creativity too, gave him the energy to keep going back to those canvases, keep wrestling with the fog and the light.
So we've seen Monet the artist battling the elements, finding beauty in the unexpected, capturing pollution without even meaning to. But we've also seen Monet the man, the husband, feeling lonely, needing those connections, and ultimately finding solace in his art.
It's like those letters and paintings together give us this fuller picture, a more nuanced understanding of this whole creative process. They remind us that great art doesn't come from nowhere. It's a product of the artist's life, their emotions, their world.
So next time you're looking at a Monet, especially one of those foggy London scenes, remember the guy who braved the weather, the loneliness, even the pollution, to capture this fleeting moment of beauty. Remember the man who found inspiration in the most unexpected places, who saw the world differently and then shared that vision with us.
And hey, next time you find yourself in some fog, whether it's a busy city or a quiet countryside, take a second to appreciate it. That ephemeral beauty, the way it transforms everything, makes it mysterious. Who knows? Maybe you'll even feel a little bit of that same spark that ignited Monet's genius all those years ago.